So hi, good afternoon to all of you. To welcome you all in this demo session of the NPTEL course DC Microgrid and Control System. Professor Avik Bhattacharya is the course instructor of this course. He is currently assistant professor in the Department of Electrical Engineering at IIT Roorkee. And I am Sahil Gaurav, research scholar at IIT Guwahati in the Department of Electronics and Electrical Engineering. Before begin our today's session, first I would like to just go through the course layout that we will see in this course, that what we will learn in the upcoming weeks. So this is the course layout of this. This is the what we are going to learn. Here this my pen is not working. I think actually the my pen is not working at that time, so I just go through this. So are you able to see the screen, and my voice is audible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So this is the syllabus, and this is the you can syllabus or course layout for this NPTEL course. And we will see the first brief introduction and concepts of microgrid in the first week, and the types of microgrid system, and the difference between microgrids and centralized power system, central conventional power system. And again, and after that we will see the types of microgrids, in which we see AC and DC microgrids, and compare these two different topology, AC and DC microgrids. We see the advantage, disadvantage of using this type of microgrids, and we will see the power tonic converters in microgrid applications, DC microgrid topologies, and then we will see DC powered source components and application of DC microgrids. And then we will go through this operation of DC microgrid, some standards related with DC power circuits. There are various standards and specifications related to these DC power circuits. And at the in the last week we will see that control methods in DC microgrid and the stability analysis of the DC microgrid. So before we see the questions of this tutorial, I would like to just go through some basic theories, like so that you are able to answer that questions. If you see the total installed capacity of India with respect to power generation that this pie chart demonstrates. Like here you can see that the major portion is covering by the coal based plant. The black part you can see here, the major portion is covering by the coal based plant, that is approximately that is approximately 50.7%. And then we have a small portion of lignite based plant also, and then we have hydropower plant that is also a big contributor to this power generation, and then we have major portion of renewable energy sources, that is approximately 28.1%. Okay, my figure at that time was not visible, so I again. So here we can see that the major portion is coming from the renewable energy sources, and then we have a contribution from the gas based plant also, and nuclear based plant, that is 1.7%, and diesel based plant, that is very minimal, 0.1%. So it if you see the renewable power contribution in the in our Indian power system, that is increasing in a very like earlier it was, if you see in 2019 it was only 21%, but now in 2022 it is approximately 28.1%, that is nearly 30%. So if you see that its pace is very like means due to government initiative and global pollution, the research is going on, and so the renewables generation in upcoming days, it will also increase, and it will just, we can see that the dependency on coal based plant is decreasing day by day, and the renewable energy generation will be like that will have major contribution in the highest contribution in the upcoming power system. And here one important point is that hydro is missing from these renewable resources. That is why that is because, like, if you set up a hydro based plant in an area, then you are just playing with the nature, that you need to put a dam, and for that what you have to do, you have to like displace a community from that that area, and also you are just banding the flow of river according to your wish, and it also creates in some area it also creates it creates flood. So it is not like a type of clean energy, that is anyhow it is also, it impacts our nature, flora and fauna of the environment. So you can see that that's why scientists just don't include in the renewable energy sources. You can put a small hydro based plant in renewables, but for a big hydro plant wherever that you need to install a bigger dam, then it is not included in the renewable energy sources, because it has negative impact on the environment. And government of USA has put one statement here. You can see that at one time The Calumet River in Oregon and California had salmon runs in the millions. The construction of 4 dams along the river reduced the fish runs to a fraction of that. That happens because putting a dam, the salmon fish that were found earlier were large in nature, but it is decreasing by putting 4 dams on the rivers. So this is the negative impact on the our environment. So that's why big hydro plant is not the part of the renewable resources. So what do you mean by these renewable sources? So let's see the definition, the real definition of these renewable energy sources. Resources found in nature that are self-regenerating. Resources found in nature that are self-regenerating are called as renewable resources. These sources are normally used to produce clean or green energy. This production does not lead to climate change and does not involve emission of pollutants. And some of well-known examples are solar energy, wind energy, hydropower, and here also I mentioned a small scale hydro, not a big scale hydro. Biofuels, that includes biomass, geothermal energy. So these are the major renewable resources. These sources like self-generating, once replenished, it takes time to, like what you can say, that don't here okay. So these renewable sources, if we want to produce power from these renewable sources, like these are generated at a small level also. So if we put these resources at a distributed side, so that's why distribution generation comes into the picture of power system. So what does this means? What does this distributed generation means? Here you can see the traditional power system, in which we have centralized power system, that is most generally coal based plant, and we transmit power by converting this lower level voltage into higher level voltage, and then transmit it through transmission line, and again for distributing to the industries or big consumers. So we again convert this high voltage into medium level voltage at a substation and distribute it through industries and big consumers, like. And again for distributing in an area like where we are residing. So in every city you can see that outside of the city there is a substation that used to distribute the power by converting this medium level voltage to low level voltage, and this voltage approximately at 11 kV. And this distribution transformer you can see in your area where you are residing, and this from this we get 400 volt line to line AC, and we takes the power from here only. So this is centralized conventional generation. And if we now see, due to renewable energy sources coming into the picture, we have the only generation at the very far from the consumer side, it is also at the consumer side. Here you can see this PV system and distributed wind system. If we have big PV plant, then we can install at this bus also. So means distributed generation means that you are generating some a smaller level of power at distribution side also. It may increase in the future also, because if in every home if we see that they have installed solar rooftop panels. So and in a farmland they may install that the solar PV. So if we see, the traditional energy generation is mostly done in centralized facilities, from where energy must travel a lot to reach the end customer, like I just demonstrate. And by contrast, renewables are often associated with distributed generation, also called dispersed generation or decentralized generation. These are the other names. The distributed generation we can call it dispersed generation or decentralized generation. This is producing energy in many small facilities and transporting it over short distances. And here we can see that in distributed what the major advantage that you don't need to transmit the power through a long distance. Here you are residing, you can take power from that area only. So the power losses in the transmitting the power through a long distances, it significantly reduces the power losses for the distances. So the first question is for today's session is what type of energy is solar energy? And the first option is conventional energy, second B option is non-renewable energy, C option is commercial energy, and fourth option is renewable energy. And you can just type your answer in the chat box. So this is a very easy question, and most of the answer must gave the correct answer only. So the correct answer is solar energy, that is renewable energy. And conventional energy, that what does mean that are non conventional energy and non-renewable energy are the similar, both are the same thing. And what do you mean by commercial energy? Commercial energy, that energy available at some price to the users that you need to pay, that is not free of cost. So some of the examples of commercial energy are coal, petroleum, gas, electricity. And if we see the non-commercial energy, that energy available free of cost to the users, and examples are firewood, agriculture based cow dung, etc. And these cow dungs you can see in the all these things you can see in rural areas only, that non-commercial type of energy. So we will see the next question. Second question is the what type of energy is wind energy? Options are same. A option is conventional energy, B option is non-renewable energy, C option is commercial energy, D option is renewable energy. You can type your answer in the chat box. Okay. So I got some of the responses, and that is correct. So the correct option is renewable energy. I just already demonstrated the conventional energy and the renewable energy are both the same. Commercial energy I just told. Commercial and unconventional renewable energy are those energy that once exhausted don't replenish within a certain amount of time. It takes time. So these are wind energy is like renewable energy. It is not exhausted in some period of time. It is always there. Means flow. Wind is, means it depends on the velocity of wind. Now we will see the next question. Here it is. This question comes from PV. What does MPPT in PV stand for? And the first option is maximum power point tracking, and the second B option is minimum power point tracking, and C option is multiple power point tracking, and D option is monolithic power point tracking. You try once, then I will tell the answer. Okay, I got some responses. So, so the question was, what does MPPT in PV stands? MPPT in PV stand for? That is some term related to PV system or wind system. You can also if we have wind power plant, there is also need to include MPPT. So it is also related to wind power plant system also. So the correct answer is maximum power point tracking. And if we see the definition of maximum power point tracking, here it is MPPT or maximum power point tracking. Maximum power point tracking is algorithm that included in solar charge controllers used for extracting maximum available power from the PV module. That we have to include this is algorithm that it is included in the solar charge controller, or we can say it as solar regulators also. The voltage at which PV module can produce maximum power is called maximum power point voltage or peak power voltage. It's called maximum power point voltage or peak power voltage. And the major principle of MPPT is to extract the maximum available power from PV module by making them operate at the most efficient voltage, that is maximum power point. And here is this term solar charge included. So let's see the solar charge controllers also, that where this MPPT algorithm implemented. So a solar battery charger. What is solar charge controller? That is a solar battery charger connected between solar panels and battery. We will see the figure also in the next slide. And it regulates the battery charging process and ensures the battery is charged correctly, or more importantly, that is not overcharged. That it regulates the charging process. The main function of solar charge controller, that it regulates the charging process. And there are two types of solar charge controllers you can mainly found in the market, that is PWM solar charge controller or MPPT solar charge controller. So if we see this difference between the PWM solar charge controller and MPPT solar charge controller, this figure demonstrate in a better way. What happens in PWM solar charge controller is, it just whatever the battery voltage, that is 12 volt, here whatever the battery volt, it just equates this 12 volt with the PV array voltage, and it takes current at this 12 volt. So it maintains the PV array voltage equals to the battery voltage and takes power accordingly. So here you can see, this is the PV curve. Sorry, this is the IV curve. This is the IV curve. The blue line is the IV curve and the red one is the PV curve. So if you maintain the solar PV voltage at 12 volt then it takes power from the solar PV array equal to 8 ampere. Then if you multiply this 12 volt into 8 ampere, then you are getting approximately 96 watt power from the solar PV array. And in contrary, in MPPT solar charge controller, what happens that you does not just equate the battery voltage with the PV array voltage equal to this battery voltage. Here what we do, we just maintains the PV array voltage equal to this maximum voltage. Like here we can take the maximum amount of power. So if you maintain the 32 voltage, this one, then how much amount of current you will take? That is 7.8 ampere. So if you multiply this this 12 volt and 20.8 ampere, then how much power you are getting? Approximately 250 watt. So you can see that in MPPT solar charge controller you are approximately getting 2.5 times higher power than the PWM solar charge controller. That is the major advantage, that it increases the efficiency. So this figure highlights the problem with using a higher voltage solar panel on a 12 volt battery without MPPT. So what does things happen? It reduces the efficiency. PWM solar charge controller. Generally, this PWM solar charge controller implemented at a smaller level, but for a bigger plant, they always prefer MPPT, and it is always advisable to use the MPPT solar charge controller only, so that we can take the maximum power from the PV array. Whatever that is the maximum power we can take, it is from that PV plant. And the next question comes from the wind power system. The fourth question is, the blades in wind turbines are connected to. First option is a string, second option is tower, third option is foundations, fourth option is nacelle. You might be familiar with these terms, so you can try, and I can see your answers in chat box. Okay, so I got some of responses. Whatever means, if you are present here, then you should try at least something. That it might be wrong, but at least you should try. So I will first demonstrate this, what this term means: strings, towers, foundations, nacelle in the wind turbine. And the correct answer for this question is nacelle. Here you can see the wind turbine. So first one is a string. A string is basically that we use to connect the various wind turbines in the wind farm. So this is something related to the cables or wires and topology that we use to connect the various wind turbines. And tower is this part, the here. Tower, here you can see this one. This is like a steel tower. Here you can see it is made of tower on which this nacelle and rotor blades were present. And foundation you can see that is earth that is present on the ground. And this nacelle is the outer. This nacelle is the outer casing in which we can see this outer casing in which we see the gearbox, generator, brake, and rotor and also rotor blades is connected with this nacelle. what you can initially the outer covering only, in which various major components were present that generates the that generates the power. So initial what is there, that is like generator system, we have generator brake, and there is also inside gearbox. So these things were present in the nacelle only, and the outer and the front part is connected to the rotor blade. So the here what is, and the question was, the blades in wind turbines are connected to the correct answer is nacelle. And if you see this tower, mainly there are four types of tower. We are using, first one is tabular steel towers. Tabular steel towers. This figure, here in this figure, tabular steel tower is used. And the second one is lattice tower. Third one is concrete tower. The first tabular steel tower is most often used. You can see in figures. And fourth one is guide connect tabular towers. These upper three towers are for large wind turbines. And this one, fourth one is for a small wind turbines. These things we should know about the towers, this will be most often used. So the tower only that supports the nacelle and the rotor blade. And if we see the foundation is also of two types. This foundation part is also of two types. A sprayed foundation, and the second one is piled foundation. These things are not part of the electrical engineering. These things more demonstrated by this civil engineering, and these are also research part, that how to put the wind turbines in more efficient, means more good way, that it will not damage during earthquakes, and it has lifetime is more. So you can see many papers on the foundation part also in civil engineering department. Now we will see the next question. Next question is, which of the following converters is isolated type, in which there is isolation, there is transformer had been used. So first option is buck converter, second option is Sepik converter, and C option is flyback converter, and D option is boost converter. So you might have gone through these converters in your undergrad or PG courses. and all these converters, I just give all these converters are DC type of converter only. So please write your answer in the chat box so that I can see. So just try, it might be wrong or correct, but you should try that. The question is, which of the following converters is isolated type? A option is buck converter, B option is Sepik converter, C option is flyback converter, D is boost converter. Okay, thank you. Okay, some students have given the answer, and I can see that they gave the correct answer. So you this is the very one of the commonly used DC-DC converter, that is a step down DC-DC converter, buck converter. So it is not isolated type. You can see that non-isolated converter, Sepik converter, single ended primary inductance converter, that is also non-isolated type converter, and third one is flyback converter, it is isolated type converter. So the correct answer is C. And fourth one is boost converter, it is also non-isolated converter, that is a step up DC-DC converter. And I just briefly tell you the types of power tonic converter. Power tonics converter. So if you categorize, there are mainly, we have DC-AC system, so either input is DC or AC, so based on an output is either DC or AC. So based on this we have four types of converter. The first one is DC-DC converter. Second one is DC-AC, that will also be called inverter. And third one is AC-DC, that we called rectifier. And fourth one is AC-AC, that we there are two types, that is cyclo converter and AC voltage controller. So here we will see just DC-DC converter. Here in the question basically asked isolated and non-isolated part, so we can divide the DC-DC converter into isolated and non-isolated type further. Isolated, second one is non-isolated. And we will see some of the important and the well-known isolated and non-isolated converter. That is, first one is flyback converter, second one is forward converter, and some of these converters we will see in this course also, their modeling part. Flyback, forward, push-pull converter, fly forward, and then we have half bridge, then we have half bridge converter, then we have full bridge converter. And in the non-isolated part, that is we mostly study in the undergrad, non-isolated, that is buck converter, buck boost, buck boost, and some of the other converters, like we the the most common converters that we are just seeing this Cook converter, and some are Cook converters, SEPIC, and the full form of this SEPIC converter is single ended primary inductance converter. And fourth one is, and these are the one the mostly used and mostly be read in the courses, so that we are here, just I told you, Zeta converter. So let's see the next question, sixth number question. The total number of buses in the Indian network is, first option is 6034, second option is 6000, third option is 5000, and D option is, last option is 7000. So how many total number of buses in the Indian power system? Our Indian grid is a one nation grid and one frequency grid, so that is our interconnected type of system, and there are approx, you can just write your answer. I just want to see how many of you know this, the total number of buses in the Indian power system. Okay, I got some responses, and they gave correctly. So the total number of buses in the Indian network is 6034. Now let's see the next question. Which of the following does not help in reducing losses of power electronic devices? First option is, A option is ZVS, B option is ZCS, C option is using switches with low on resistance, D option is using switches with high on resistance. So try this. In this, I first like to explain the some of the important terms, that is ZVS and ZCS. These are the soft switching techniques, and the ZVS means zero voltage switching. ZCS means zero current switching. We have two types of switching schemes in power electronics converter, that is hard switching and soft switching topology. So these are soft switching methods. What happens is that during this zero voltage switching, zero current switching, we turn on or off the switches whenever the voltage across the switch or current flowing through the switch is zero, so that if we calculate the switching losses, that will come as minimal, or it will, for ideal case, it will be zero. So that's why we use this type of switching scheme, so that we get reduced switching losses. And the third option is using switches with low on resistance, that is for reducing the conduction losses. Means whenever it is conducting, that if sorry, if on resistance is low, then it will be, if we calculate the conducting losses, then it will be coming as low because resistance is low. So if we calculate power, then conducting power, then it will come as low across the switch. And using switches with high on resistance, so this will increase the conducting losses. So what will be the correct answer? Which of the following does not help in reducing loss of power to device? So the correct answer is C. Let me see how many of you gave the correct answer. Okay, most of the student gave only right answer. Let us see the next question. 8th number question is the first electrical networks were designed to operate with. First, A option is DC power, B option is AC power, C option is A and B both, and D is none. This is really very interesting question, and every electrical engineer should know that which power system came first, which power system were utilized first in the society. DC power system or AC power system, or A or B both come together. And let me just give the who invented DC. Like for DC power, who has invented the DC part? These are invented by the Thomas Alva Edison. And the AC power was invented by Nikola Tesla. And this was first commercial power system of Thomas Alva Edison came into existence in 1882. The first set of the electrical power system of DC in 1882, and this it was at the Pearl Street station, New York, to deliver electricity produced by central DC dynamos 110 volt DC. This was developed at 110 volt DC over underground copper cable. The cable was used as, that was for transmitting the power they used underground at that time. Underground copper cable. And for Nikola Tesla, and it was just for 1 to 2 miles only. Why this is? Because they have to transmit large amount of power at this lower amount of DC voltage, so a large amount of current flow the cables, and it just increases the transmitting power loss. So it is just used for the 1 to 2 miles only due to low transmission voltage. And in AC power, that was Nikola Tesla demonstrated first commercial AC power system of America in 1886. So which could transmit electrical power at a higher voltage using transformers and had a small losses and wider service area. So comparison to the DC power system, it has wider service area. Why? They have used the transformers, but in DC they can't use the transformers at that time. So they use the high volt, and they just convert the electrical power at a higher voltage using transformer, and just reduce the losses and transmit it over a wider service area. So this question was asking the his first electrical network. So the correct answer is DC power. But what happened in 1888? In 1888, the so-called bar, means there were like bar between Nikola Tesla and Thomas Alva Edison, and Nikola Tesla belongs to Westinghouse. means where he used to work. And this Thomas Alva Edison worked at General Electric. So General Electric led by Thomas Alva Edison, and Westinghouse led by this Nikola Tesla. Though they had a bar at that time, which power system should be used. So at that time, the power tonics were not that much developed. So what happened is that Nikola Tesla easily won the game. Why? Because it has low losses, and it has, in spite that they know that it has higher voltage, you may get the chances of shock, but due to low losses, they easily win they prefer the AC power at that time. So in 1888, this AC power system prevails. Nowadays, again, for transmitting the power, because power tone is devices where we have more efficient. So we have like with the HVDC system for transmitting the power for long distances. So DC has its own advantage. They have no corona losses, and like for higher distances we always prefer the DC power system now. And we have also DC transmission system with our neighboring nation. We have this type of HVDC connection between our Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and we are also planning to join India with Sri Lanka through the underground, through the sea cables. That is also DC power. That we also transmit power through DC only. So that is also called non-synchronous based connection between two nations. That we have right now. We have three nations: Nepal, Bangladesh, Bhutan. That is, we have DC connection between these nations. So next we will see the ninth number question. So which of the following is not an advantage of using renewable energy sources as sources of energy? A option is clean energy, B option is intermittent output, C option is less pollution, and D option is reduction of carbon footprint. That not an advantage. You are just asking about disadvantage of renewable resources. So just try this question. This is very easy question. So let me see how many of you gave the correct answer. Okay. The intermittent output is the disadvantage of the renewable resources. Oh. Intermittent output means variable output, that we cannot, we can see it like renewable energy is also called as variable energy resources. Variable energy sources or intermittent energy resources we call like renewable energy sources. So these sources are non-dispatchable. We call it as non-dispatchable source of energy, like wind power and solar power. What do you mean non-dispatchable source of energy? The non-dispatchable sources are those that the companies providing electricity cannot control. Means they don't have control on their production. Like you cannot have control over solar power and wind power. Companies also don't have, because it depends on the nature. For solar power it depends on the radiation temperature. For wind power it depends on the velocity of wind. So these are non-dispatchable sources of energy, renewable resources. So the correct answer is B option. This is the disadvantage of renewable resources. And now we will see the last question of this session, and after that we will end this session. The 10th number question is the energy resources which are being used for many decades are known as. A option is conventional energy sources, B option is non-conventional energy sources, C option is primary energy sources, and D option is fuel cells. So let me see how many of you gave the correct answer. Okay, just type your answer in the chat box so that I can see. So this is the last question. Let me, I should answer this question. So the energy resources which are being used for many decades are known as conventional energy sources, and the non-conventional energy sources are also called as renewable energy sources. Conventional energy sources includes coal, gas, oil that we are using for many decades. Non-conventional sources like we have wind, solar, that we are generating power from these sources nowadays due to research and the innovation in power devices. Many things there are also parallelly running. So that's all for the today's session. Thank you all for joining this session. And if you have any doubt, then you can ask in the discussion forum. We have a group for this course also. You can if you have not joined, I think you all have joined by registering already. If you registered this course, you already were present in the discussion forum. If you have any doubt, then you can ask there, and you can ask in the next session also. So we will meet in the next week. That's all. Thank you all.